doing the conversation live chat. My name is O'Brien Dennis. I am a author, advocate, and a survivor of sexual violence. So this is going to be our third week in doing the conversation live chat, and our vision is to create an environment where men and boys can speak freely about sexual violence and grow up in a free environment of sexual abuse. So this is what OD does. So OD started a conversation about 4 years ago, and it's a male support group for male survivors of sexual abuse. The group is run solely by men, and for men, what we've decided to do is we've taken a non-conventional approach in dealing with group therapy. In the conversation group that we have, there is a counselor or a therapist that is a part of the group, and their purpose is just there to guide the men, and if there's a trigger, at least there's a trained professional in the room. So what we've done this year, we've decided to do the live chat. And the live chat really actually go about in having an individual, a survivor, and we're gonna have one-on-one conversation. It's not an interview, it's just a conversation, a dialogue. We're just having the conversation with this individual outside of our traditional group therapy session that we have. My intention in everything that I've been doing in the past 5 years, I realized that there has to be an intention and a meaning in doing what we're doing, because there's a greater spectrum in understanding the subject topic that we're going to be discussing today and for the next coming weeks. So my intention in creating the live chat is to give the men who I will be interviewing a platform to speak their truth. It is also my intention to let you, the audience, get a better understanding of their level of vulnerability in how each individual man will be telling their respective stories. So outside of the intention, there's a greater purpose in doing this. So my purpose is to allow you, the audience, to get a somewhat better understanding into the lives of survivors. Too often we get so caught up and consumed in the graphic nature of the sexual act, and I really believe that we need to look beyond that. No matter how hard we try, we cannot normalize trauma, and I don't want these men to come on this platform and relive their trauma by retelling their graphic story of how they were once abused. So I want you, the audience, to get a better understanding of their daily lives, how they function and how they have been coping with abuse. So this week I have with me Christopher Holmes, and he is a survivor. I met Christopher 2 years ago at our annual garden party, and for those of you who watched last week's segment with Raymond Sosa, Raymond had a man on top of him in his photo exhibition concept, and that person was Christopher Holmes. So Christopher, thank you so much for doing this with me. I fully understand this is not easy to do, telling your story, and especially being so open, a vulnerable candidate in such a platform. So this is your platform in telling your story in your authentic voice. So before we start, just for the audience, just say who you are, please.
My name is Christopher Wishes. Everybody calls me Wishes Holmes. I work as a peer educator for a nonprofit organization here in the Bronx.
All right. So this is not an interview. This is the first thing.
Well,
And I need you to be as comfortable as possible. And bear in mind, this isn't my platform. This is your platform to tell your story in your authentic voice. So often when we have conversations about sex abuse, we deal with the shame factor that comes with it. How do you feel about shame, and what does shame look like for you when telling your story?
Honestly, I don't have any shame telling my story. I used to be scared to tell my story when I was younger, because I was still trying to get an understanding of what my story is. just learning piece by piece, and memories are coming back. You know, memories that I thought I've hid away. Now that I'm getting older and starting to understand things better, you know, I'm starting to have these dreams, and I wouldn't call them nightmares. It's more like dreams of just getting me to remember things that I tucked away. So I wouldn't say I'm ashamed, I'm more proud to know the things for me to understand my life better.
Okay. So, one of the questions that people tend to ask me whenever I'm out doing public speaking is, where not I consider myself to be a survivor or a victim. It's a very thin line between a survivor and a victim, because oftentimes by telling the story, as survivors we can re-victimize ourselves by retelling the story. And as I said earlier on, by engaging people in conversation about the graphic details of the abuse, it sometimes re-traumatizes us. That's not my intention here today. So, do you consider yourself to be a survivor or a victim?
Can I consider myself to be both?
if really that's how you see yourself.
Yeah, I really consider myself to be both. I mean, at first, you know, I was a victim, you know, of being sexually abused, you know, at a very young age, at 3. You know, as far as I was told it was at 3. What I can remember was at 7.
Okay.
So, you know, just, I said at that time I was a victim, but, you know, only the furthest I can remember back is 7, from 7 to 13, from the cousin that molested me. But, you know, at a younger age, and for me to understand, as I'm growing up, you know, certain family members told me that it happened to me at 3 by my adopted family. I have no recognition of that. You know, I can't remember that far back, but I'm going based off what they told me. But even when I'm asking questions about that situation, nobody's giving me the truth.
Okay.
They're just giving me the runaround, making them the victims of the situation.
So so let me see if you're getting this right, because I remember having a conversation with you earlier on.
Right.
And you were talking about your family. There's an adopted family, and then there's your biological family.
Right.
There's a point in time where you left your adopted family to go and live with your biological family, and the issue that...
But not by choice.
Not by choice. But the issue that you're struggling with, as an individual, you define yourself as a survivor.
Yes.
But in terms of the victim that you're trying to tell us, your family, and I'm going to put both the adopted and your biological family in the broader spectrum as your family, because that's how you define them,
Right.
as family. So let's not say adoptive and birth family. We're just going to put them in one broad spectrum. However, what you consider yourself to be the survivor, your family who are somewhat struggling, dealing with the abuse, which most families really, really struggle with dealing with abuse, because as I asked you before about shame, they often have the opinion that they're having this level of shame that come with you being so open and candid about the story. So in terms of the victim, what you're saying is your immediate family consider themselves to be the victim in all of this.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
All right. I could say I could relate to you, but this is all about you today. So I'm going to go back to family again. I know firsthand how difficult and how challenging it can be to engage our families in conversation about the trauma. And whether or not we want to admit it or not, there is this level of expectation, because we're hoping, wishing, praying and believing that as the young man and even as an adult male going to our respective family members and telling them about what happened to us, that they will give us some level of empathy and sympathy. So when you first had the conversation with your family, what was it like?
Oh God. Having that conversation with my mother, I love her to death. I mean, to this day, I still love her. She's my birth mother. She brought me into this world. But when I finally come out and told her, I mean, they always had suspicions that I was gay. You know, I was young. I'm from the country, you know. High voice, very skinny, you know, was just very playful.
Okay.
When I was in high school and I was 16, the day of my birthday, I got into this huge fight. And I got expelled from high school. I can remember the day my mother told me. She said she loves me as her son, but she hates homosexuals,
Okay.
and she wishes they all die and go to hell.
Oh.
And I love my mother to death, but every time I see her, I remember that, and I will never ever forget that.
It's hit somewhere in the back of your head. I need to make a disclaimer before we go on any further. Earlier on, we had a conversation about the whole homosexual topic, and Christopher has identified himself as a proud black man who identify as gay. However, in dealing with the subject topic, too often there's this preconceived notion and a myth that there's a direct correlation between male sex abuse and homosexuality. There isn't. To this date, there has not been any data or any empirical study that can back up or support the theory or the notion that there is a direct correlation between male sex abuse and homosexuality. I honestly can't tell you why is it whomever abused you from the get-go, if they saw something within you, or it's because they felt at some point in time that you were masculine enough, even as a child, because you can't blame a child to be effeminate or masculine while growing up, because our sense of sexuality doesn't come until later on. So as kids growing up, there's no definitive line that says this is who you are, unless you can say for sure this is it. But my question for you is, at a point when you engage your family members in a conversation about your abuse, separate apart from your story of you identifying as who you are,
Right.
but when you had that conversation with them about the abuse, how did they react to you?
I never really told anybody. It's only been spoken of once, and that's when I was 13 and finally admitted. The only reason that it was brought out of this, the sexual abuse was even brought out, is because I kept having these problems where I couldn't hold my stool.
Okay.
So, it's kind of even, it kind of fucks with you to even think about stuff like that. But, when you got a child that's not holding their stool and they keep using the bathroom themselves, eventually a parent should understand, trying to figure out what's going on. Mm-hmm. Why can't my child learn how to use the bathroom in the toilet instead of in their pants all the time? And when my family figured it out by taking me to the doctors, that's when they found out I was getting sexual abuse.
Wow.
And even with that being said, me going to the doctor and them trying to figure out what's going on, the doctor letting them know what's going on, they still didn't comprehend that. They still thought, oh, well, he's being molested, and that's the reason why he's acting like this. Then let's take him to a therapist to figure out if we can get that out of his head. That was the next step after that situation.
All right. So, like most families, they just immediately just assume that once this act occurred, this is who you're going to become.
Yeah, so let's take him to the hospital now and try to get it, see if a doctor can change him. Like it's some type of, virus or something that can be cured.
We're going live, and prior to going live, you were tagged on Facebook, you were tagged on Instagram. We're both on Facebook and Instagram together. So, if after leaving here today, your family members or your friends ask you questions about your story, how are you gonna cope with that? Because who knows, but by being so public, being so open, being so candid in this setting, this forum, they may not want to have a conversation with you, or they may get to a point where they come and tell you that I'm feeling more shameful because you're now bringing or airing the family business on the outside.
Yeah, well, that's their life. This is my life that I'm living.
So you're good with that. All right. I'm really happy with it. So I'm happy you brought up the conversation about the doctor and them trying to get some help. Over your lifespan, have you personally gone out and seek professional help?
No.
Why?
I don't feel like me actually talking to a complete stranger, I can cope with, but I have to get comfortable with the person. I've just been happier with just telling my story and learning from what I can learn from myself and other people. And me telling my story and reaching out to other people. That's how I'm able to help myself.
And guess what? Don't feel any way whatsoever, because there's this notion that once you've gone through a certain level of trauma, then it's important for you to seek some level of mental health. I'm coming from that profession, and while I'm a huge supporter of seeking clinician help and having a therapist, it's just not for everybody. There are many people who are able to tell their story to several different people, and as a process, in doing that, they're able to get over the trauma and whatever they're going through. But if it doesn't work for you, it just doesn't work for you. So it worked for me. I can be very honest about you. It worked for me.
Honestly, I wouldn't shoot it down. If somebody gave me the opportunity to go talk to somebody that I find that can maybe really get an understanding of what I'm going through and get some great results in the end, then sure. But not just me actually calling somebody up and goes.
Earlier on, you had a conversation about the dreams. You see, a layman person, and as much as I'm from the clinical field, I'm not a trained clinician, I'm not a trained counselor, so that's not what we're doing here. We're just, me and you as we're just having this one-on-one conversation and allowing our views to have a better understanding of the life that you've lived. So we're going to talk about self-medication later on, because if you don't seek professional help, the reality is you got to deal with it in some ways. So we're going to hold it off for a bit. So we're going to talk about how you've dealt with your trauma. So what are some of your triggers?
Of what?
The abuse.
Besides the dreams I have?
Yeah. Are there anything that you'd...
Okay, I got what you're saying. My triggers, when I'm watching like Criminal Minds, those TV shows and stuff like that, when kids being molested, it hits a spot. It hits a spot hard. But not to the point where it's like, criminalized or anything like that. It's just, when I hear about a child being molested or being abused sexually, it hits a spot. And it hits a spot hard. But I try my best not to think about it. Because then it makes me remember, it makes me go back into memories, and then it gets me to that point where I get depressed, to that point where I have to go use.
Okay. And when you say use, we're talking about drugs, right?
Yeah, street drugs.
So let's just go into it.
Okay.
So talk about the triggers. How did you cope? Because the reason why I decided to hold this back, and I started off our conversation by shame, so often I've met survivors who don't want to tell the story, because in telling the story, not only do they have to talk about the trauma, they have to talk about the triggers, and in talking about the triggers, we have to talk about the coping mechanism. And it is the coping mechanism that oftentimes bring about the shame and the guilt. So I've told you for a very, very long time, I've always admired your level of openness and candidness in just keeping it 100% real in terms of your coping mechanism. So for those who are watching us, as a survivor, how have you coped over the years? And you don't have to mention the word, just be yourself.
Sex, drugs, trying to find somebody that, when I'm lonely, to help me.
Okay.
And that's just anybody. Well, not just anybody, but just about anybody that will just not even listen to me, because I don't need to talk about my problems to you. I just need you there. I just need some type of human warmth body next to me, which is hard to get. So, when I can't get a human next to me, I turn to drugs.
And when you say drug, because people may have the assumption that we're talking about prescription drugs or marijuana. So I don't want to sound as if we're doing a Whitney Houston. Drugs.
I mean, marijuana is my deal every day. Anybody that knows me knows I smoke weed just to keep me a happy-go-lucky person that I am.
Okay.
But when I'm going through that depression, when I'm going through something, when I feel like, it's just too much for me to deal with, when the dreams get too rushed for me, I turn to crystal meth.
It's really hard for me sometimes to hear how how the survival deal with it because I know firsthand the stuff I've done. So, at what age do you start?
Start drugs?
Yeah.
Wow. Marijuana, I started when I was 13. I didn't do anything else until I was 25. That's when I started doing coke. When I looked at our whole addiction of coke for about a good 5 years, I stopped that and started crystal meth at 30. I'm 35 now.
So, how has it really impacted your life? Are you functional? Are you able to? So I'm not trying to.
I got what you're saying.
Yeah.
I got what you're saying. I have to say I'm very functional. First of fact, you know, I live a professional life. I have to be there when I'm with my clients who are going through the same thing I'm going through. So I can't be high around them, you know, and then trying to help them out. Only time I can really do that is on the weekend, which I call myself a weekend warrior. So when I'm out in public, I have to keep myself cool. So the only thing I'm doing during the week is smoking weed.
So, there's a point in my life where I was a functional alcoholic, and I couldn't come to terms with that.
Yeah.
So you are a functional drug addict. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't want to dwell too much on that. I just really want people to get an understanding of the life that you're living and see a face to it. Because when we talk about drug,
face.
you see, too often when we talk about drug and addiction, there's this image that comes into people's mind,
Right.
and you don't fit that image. So it is good for people watching to really see you as someone functioning and still doing all that you're doing, and you think 35, right? It's looking fabulous. So I'm gonna ask you some keywords, and just be as open as possible as you can. What does family mean for you?
I'm trying to get that to understand. Myself. To me, my family, what family means to me, to be honest with you, I'm trying to develop that now. Since I moved here to New York, I've been trying my best to get closer to my family. You know, I want to see them as much as possible.
Okay.
See them for the holidays, calling, texting, Facebooking. You know, and really more of my brothers and my sister, because in reality, since I came into their lives at 7 years old, they didn't know who I was.
Okay.
They didn't even know I was even part of the family until I was just brought into the family. I was just, here, this is your brother type of situation.
Right.
They had my back since then. My brother Tommy and all them, my sister Tiana, they all had my back since day one. They never judged me for me being who I am. They wanted to basically help me, and they took me in. They adapted quicker than our own mother adapted. So that's my family. My brothers and my sister, my sister-in-law, Sion, all them, those are my family. I love my mother, but right now I'm more closer to my siblings than her.
Well, okay, guess what? It's very, very good that at least the family really represents and means something for you. In coming to terms with the abuse, you made mention that one of the reasons why I decide to use the drugs is sometimes you just want someone there. As survivors, we often feel as though we're missing something because whether or not we want to admit our knowledge, what our abusers did was they robbed us of our authentic self. They took something from us. What does trust look like for you?
Stress?
Trust.
Trust. Yeah.
Do you trust yourself, first of all?
I trust myself to a certain extent. I trust myself to until crystal meth comes into play.
Okay.
So yeah, I can say I'm not gonna relapse this weekend. I'm not gonna get no Tina, no crystal meth this weekend. I'm gonna do this, do that. But as soon as that one person that's in my surrounding that's around me, there we go.
So I'm not gonna just pry for a bit because you say crystal meth and Tina. What's the difference
This is
between
the same thing.
It's the same
It's a
thing?
street slang word.
Okay. I'm just trying to get a better understanding, okay? Alright. What does vulnerability looks like for you?
Vulnerability. I discussed this with somebody earlier, but give me another explanation
So,
of what that means.
being vulnerable is doing this. You being this open, you being this candid, actually being very honest. Going beyond the bravery. So there's a book that I'm going to make sure I get your copy. It's
Okay.
called Daring Greatly by Dr. Brené Brown. Brené Brown. She's a PhD. Believe it or not, everything that I've learned about the vulnerability and shame comes from this book.
Mm-hmm.
Last year when I quit my job, I gave literally all my staff a copy of Daring Greatly. So what you're doing right now in this platform, in this moment, is called vulnerability. When you're able to stand and live in your truth, no matter what people on the outside may think or say about you, you're living it. You're owning the truth. That's what vulnerability means for you. And that is why I really applaud your openness for just being this open. Because honestly, probably shame would overcome me for some of what you have just told a while ago. Mark, I've told my story so many times, but the shame still comes in somewhat. My closing question for you is, if you have a conversation with your younger self,
Lord.
and you see, this is not about blaming and trying to figure out what if I could have and if I had. This is your life, and I'm a firm believer that we all have a purpose, and everything in this life happens for a reason. I oftentimes tell people that I'm thankful and grateful for the experiences because it has led me to this point. My calling, my purpose of living is not only to have this light that is within me to shine as brightly as it can, is to help men like you, because you've heard me so many times with my story, and being this open and candid and the life I've lived, I've helped you to say you'd want to mirror something close to what I've gone through. I've told you, it ain't easy. I'm still struggling. It's just I'm not able to cope with it. So if you had a conversation with your younger self, what would you say?
Be proud of who you are. You know, just know that, you know, at the end of the day, if you was brought into this world by yourself, you're going to leave this world by yourself. And the only person you can take care and look out for is yourself. Nobody else is going to look out for you.
All right. So this is the end of today's live chat. You know, some of the aspects of 30 minutes fly past so and it's an honor, it's a pleasure to have this conversation with you, to have your own. Since I've met you, I can always count on you no matter what. I'm really, really grateful, very appreciative for you always picking up that phone, and no matter how much I will annoy or nag you to do me a favor, you're always there. It really means a whole lot to me. And I hope someone who's watching us will get a better understanding of what survivors in general go through, and hopefully someone who is experiencing what you're going through and doing the things that you're doing can understand that they're not alone, because that's the most important thing.
Right, and that's why I telling my story, because I know it's going to help somebody. If it was just that one person, as long as it's touching somebody, that's all that matters to me.
Yep, that's all it takes. So this is the wrap for the Conversation live chat. For those who want to get more information on the O'Brien Dennis initiative, you can go directly to obdi.org. We fund ourselves. As I said last week, we do not get any donation or funding from the federal government or state or local government. It comes from my pocket and all the friends who have been begging and pleading, and I'm going to look directly at you, my viewers, and ask you please to go direct to the website and make a donation. We're having our annual garden party next month on August 26th at 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. This year we're actually going to be giving out awards, and we've decided that we need to acknowledge both individuals and organizations that have been very supportive to us. For those of you who really want to get a better understanding on the training manual, you can go directly to the website and view the outline for understanding child sexual trauma. And if you want us to come into your respective organization to do a training on how to understand and see the signs of sexual trauma, please send us an email at info@obdi.org. Chris,
Yes.
once again,
Thank you.
thank you so much for coming on board. And please, if you have feedbacks or comments, I'm oftentimes open and welcome to it. Please send it to me via Instagram or Facebook, or go to the website and send me an email. So, thank you so much.